Welcome to Charting the Course, Navigating the Future of American Naval Power. Today we're delighted to have Jon S. Rennie, a notable leader in both the naval and business worlds. Jon is the co-founder and president and CEO of Peak Demand Incorporated, a leading manufacturer of critical components for electrical utilities, and former U.S. Navy nuclear submarine officer who served during the crucial period of the Cold War final stages. Within his extensive experience from 7 deployments on nuclear submarines to leading 8 manufacturing businesses for 3 global companies, Jon brings a unique perspective to leadership. He is the author of best-selling leadership books like Eye of the Watch, Become a Leader Worth Following, and All in the Same Boat, Lead Your Organization Like a Nuclear Submariner. And he also hosts the Deep Leadership Podcast. Jon's core belief is that leadership is a pivotal force that can significantly enhance any organization's performance. In our discussion, Jon will share insights on how his experiences in the Navy and the industrial sector have molded his leadership philosophy.
How would you compare the submarine culture with the corporate culture that you've experienced? You've been on both sides, corporate world and the very elite crew of the submarine. How would that benefit America's effort to make a stronger Navy?
I think the one thing is on a submarine is a pretty unique place. It's a volunteer group, as you mentioned. So it's somewhat elite, very technically strong officers, and even enlisted to get on board a submarine, you're pretty highly qualified. And we have a lot of nuclear qualified in the enlisted ranks as well. So you had a highly trained, highly capable crew. But here's the thing that really made us unique is that we're also a tight community. So once you submerge in a submarine and you're down, you lock the hatches and you leave. In our case, we were a missile boat. We were going on 90-day patrols. You couldn't change out the crew. You had the same crew you deployed with, the same crew you came back with, and you had to make the best of what you had with the people and the equipment you were deployed with. So one of the things we learned is how to get along, how to resolve differences, how to work together towards a common objective. And the other thing is we really got to know each other well. Even though I was on an Ohio-class submarine, which is the largest in our fleet, it still was tight spaces. We stood watches in very cramped quarters where we got to know each other. And so we had a deep understanding of each other. My sailors knew me, I knew them. And I think I took that approach with me when I went into the civilian world. I've run 9 different businesses, manufacturing businesses, my career. But that idea that we have to work together towards a common mission, everyone is important to the mission, and that we have to get to know each other. Both the leaders have to get to know their people need to get to know their leaders. And I think those things are essential for high performance in the military and in business.
Why is a strong Navy vital for U.S. national security, economic prosperity, and global leadership? And how do you personally assess the main challenges and opportunity the Navy faces today and in the future?
I think that this is our forward deployment capability is our Navy. Our Navy is all around the world. My son, he's in the Navy right now. He's forward deployed in the Red Sea. We're going to have threats all around the world are going to threaten America's assets and America's interests abroad. And so I think we need to have a strong Navy to be able to protect those assets all around the world. I believe in the idea of peace through strength. So in other words, when we're a powerful Navy and countries don't want to mess with us, tangle with us because of our capabilities, we have a better chance to have peace around the world. I think it's when we're weak and vulnerable is when people try to take advantage of our country. And I think that's a problem. So one of the biggest concerns I see right now, just as a civilian casually observing the Navy, is that I think we have a smaller Navy now, and I think we're pushing them too hard. Some of us old timers, we look at pictures of ships right now and they're covered in rust. And a lot of us are negative about it, like, oh, that wouldn't happen on my watch, right? That wouldn't happen when I was in the Navy. But the truth of the matter is that these ships are being pushed to their limits. The crews are being pushed to their limits. My son's been extended 2 times on his current deployment. And we are pushing our crews and our ships to the absolute limit. And that's why they look so terrible when they come back to port, because they've actually done some hard work. And I think that's a challenge. We're going to be a superpower. We need to act like a superpower, and we need to have a strong Navy, both in terms of number of ships, personnel to support them, and the technology that's available to us. So I do think it's a really important part of how we protect our interests internally is by having a strong outside presence.
What can we do to support and strengthen the Navy?
As a civilian myself, there's not much I can do other than to support any leader that's going to help make sure that the Navy is funded, they've got the latest technology. The other thing is we have to call to account when there's crap in the Navy. When there's poor leadership, we need to stand out and say, this is poor leadership. It's unacceptable in our Navy. And poor technology. We've seen these littoral combat ships have been kind of a disaster. It's been a waste of money in some cases. And I think we as civilians should say something to our leaders when we think that the Navy isn't being operated in a world-class manner. So we stand on the shoulder of giants, the men and women that were in the Navy all these years before us. And I think it's our generation's responsibility to make sure that our leaders protect the interests of our Navy, because we don't want to fund the Navy. We don't want to grow the Navy. We want to strengthen the Navy until we need it, until there's a problem. And we've got 2 carriers in the Med. Eisenhower has moved over to the Persian Gulf. When we need those assets, they have to be ready and they have to be available. And it doesn't make sense to have a small Navy when we have big interests around the world.
You mentioned the littoral combat ship, and I'll add on to that the Zumwalt destroyer.
Yes.
And I'll even add on to that the delays in the Ford carrier being put out to active duty. What do you think is behind those problems?
The thing that I think it is, and it's because I've been working in international business for the past 30 years, is that America is not what it used to be in terms of our manufacturing capability and our technology capability. I think other countries have moved very fast. I think China is a great example of a country that has progressed rapidly in terms of their shipbuilding capabilities, their technology capabilities, their manufacturing capabilities. I run a manufacturing company. I started 8 years ago. And let me tell you, I'm a dinosaur. There's very few of us that are left in manufacturing in the US. Everybody has gone to more sexy businesses like app development and software and service industry. But, I think that used to be our heart and soul, was our manufacturing capability. And we've lost that. So some of that's not coming back. I mean, you look at the UK, for example, what a great country that was, and they're not the same as they used to be in terms of their Navy, in terms of their manufacturing capability. I just don't want to go all that way. I'd like to somehow maintain our capability in terms of manufacturing, in terms of engineering, in terms of that kind of capability. So I think it goes hand in hand with the changes we've seen in our country. So that's why the Ford had so many challenges. We were trying to do very difficult things, and we probably don't have the depth of knowledge as a country as we once had.
Don't these problems go back to the design stage? We had a ship that in the end people didn't want.
Yeah, and I see that often even in business, where we sort of support something. We start spending money on something and we keep spending money on it, even though there's many people that know that there's problems with it. And this is why it's important that we have people that speak up when they feel like a design isn't going to work or it's got problems. And I think we've got to be careful not to just keep spending when we have an idea. I will say this about the Ford. I carefully watched the Ford on its first deployment. Now it's still in the Med right now, and it's a pretty good performance on this deployment. At least that's what the media is telling, at least what I can uncover. You're not hearing a lot of rumors of equipment problems. So it did take a while to get the Ford out to sea on its first deployment, but it sounds like it's working out now for sure.
You talk about manufacturing. It really goes back to the design phase on some of these problems, doesn't it?
It does. And let me tell you another depressing piece of news. I teach grad students. So sometimes I'll go into universities and do a leadership session with graduate students. And one of the things I don't see anymore is Americans in engineering. These are engineering grad students. Don't see a lot of Americans in engineering school anymore. My last class I taught, there were 40 students. 1 was American, 39 were from India. And I've done other classes where it's been India and China primarily. And these are in American universities. I'm an engineer. I studied engineering in the 80s. I don't think we see the same desire and passion for people to pursue engineering degrees and engineering excellence like we once did. It's nice to see little glimmers of shining examples of good things happening, like you see with Elon Musk and you see with SpaceX and some of the crazy things they're doing. But I don't see that same level of passion in our shipbuilding community that I do in, say, what I see with Elon.
Interesting. Given that rapid technological advancements and changing geopolitical landscape, how can the Navy stay ahead in terms of innovation and adaptation? And what lessons can be learned from the corporate sector?
I mentioned Elon. I think what's interesting is he's doing things with rockets, for example, in motor vehicles we never expected to happen. So I think we can look to businesses and entrepreneurs and smaller companies and see how they're able to commercialize technology rapidly. And the idea is that the way they run their businesses is very lean, very efficient, and they're able to get designs out there. The question is, can you do that in an environment where you have to have products that go through so much of a rigorous testing that we do, like in the military for weapon systems that have to be on platforms that are survivable? These are really good questions. How can we take a page from Elon and seeing the things that he's done with technology, and how can we apply that into our ship designs, our shipbuilding capabilities, our weapon designs? We've seen in him a speed that I don't think we see in today's typical contractors. That's just my opinion. It's much more difficult as you're trying to build a weapon system that has so much bureaucracy involved in sort of the design, the development, the approval process, and what have you. But I think we can take a page from other companies and see what they're doing to actually move quicker. How much waste is in our processes in designing a ship or designing a weapon system? I'm not an expert in it. I imagine it's a lot, though. It's a lot of waste.
I sense that stronger partnerships may be an appropriate strategy, business partnerships.
You see NASA and SpaceX working together, and NASA is a very bureaucratic organization. So I don't know how they've blended those two organizations together, but obviously they're working in partnership. So the question is, what can we do in the military side of things to partner with other technology companies that have the speed from idea to product? I think is something we could learn better.
The Navy has a rich tradition. At the same time, they need to modernize and innovate. Do you think there's any sort of conflict there? How do they keep moving ahead and maintain their traditions that are so important? Do you think that interferes at all, or is that just incidental?
I think it's incidental. I think the traditions are there. These are ceremonial traditions. I think there's a lot of that. I think we say goodbye to things eventually, like frigates. I was in the Navy when we had frigates. We don't have frigates anymore. I kind of miss that. But that's more of, we've grown beyond that. And so we now have a different shape in the Navy. When I was on the USS South Carolina, a nuclear powered cruiser. We don't have any more nuclear powered cruisers. That was something we did. We tried it, didn't work out, right? That idea didn't work out. So I think that we have to, embrace tradition, right? It's who we are. It's our character, but we also have to be open to innovation and new ideas and new ways of doing things. To me, it seems weird to see an unmanned vessel out there. They've got these unmanned ships, and I don't know what the future is for that. And it certainly goes against my idea that we need a crew. We need that intelligent crew out there making decisions. You need a captain, a salty captain out there. It goes against my traditions, but I think that we have to be open to those ideas of innovation. So I say it's like embrace our traditions, but also be open to innovation, I think is the key for us.
Well, for the unmanned, the crew's on shore. They're directing it.
That's a little weird for me. To me, you got to go to sea to be, I don't know. It's a weird thing for me. Even the drones during the wars in Afghanistan and Iran, many of those pilots were in the U.S. and carrying out missions overseas. It's a little bizarre for me, but again, if it's an effective means to accomplish our mission, then let's do it.
We discussed earlier stress tests for sailors. Leadership's an interesting dynamic. You have sailors at the enlisted level, naval officers working together, all under high pressure and high stress. What do you mean when you say stress tests, and how would you implement that if you were king for a day and you were to implement that within the Navy?
I had the honor of serving under a very hard captain. My first commanding officer was very, very tough on us, and he drilled us constantly. He was tough on the crew, but he was especially tough on his junior officers, and mainly because he wanted to make sure that we knew how to fight that ship no matter what happened. And so we drilled constantly, we trained constantly. He worked us very hard, but to the point where we were a well-run machine. So any casualty that would affect that submarine, everybody knew where to go, what to do. We operated as one during his time in command because he was very tough on us. The other thing too is he put us in situations as a junior officer where we would fail a lot. So he would intentionally put us up as like a junior officer of the deck or junior engineering officer of the watch. And he would throw so many casualties at us that there's no way to recover from it, right? But he did it on purpose because I think that failure is a great and powerful teaching tool. So he wanted us to experience failure, to learn from that failure, and then to be able to learn and never have that happen again. Because like the emotional side of failure is that you don't want that to ever occur again. So you work hard to make sure that doesn't happen again. I come from a Navy where we were tough and we trained and we worked well as a team. My second commanding officer was a lot less like that. He was more connected with his higher ups, and it was all kind of laid back once he came on board. And I think that, to be honest, I like the first CO better. He was tough on us. He never let up. He wasn't very friendly, but I love the man. I'd do anything for that captain. And I think that we do need that in the crew. We need a well-trained crew that's been battle tested, that's been pressure tested. I think it was less stress on board. We didn't worry about what would happen if we had a fire. We all knew what we would do. Less stress on the sailors itself if they're trained well and they know what to do. I think it made life a lot easier, to be honest. You really want captains who know how to fight a ship, but sometimes they're not well connected politically to get to that next level of command.
What are the key principles and practices of effective leadership that you teach in your books, and how can you apply those various situations and context within the Navy in the 21st century?
I talk about it in my book, and I talk about it when I'm training graduate students. I use the analogy of the commissioning ceremony of a ship. And it really hit me when the Ford was going through their commissioning ceremony. It was during that commissioning that I was watching it, and I'm a sucker for the Navy traditions. I love watching the pomp and circumstance, the bands, all the VIPs, the crews decked out in all the dress whites and the ribbons and all. I love that. But in this particular case, I was watching the Ford and the commissioning, and Gerald Ford's daughter was the sponsor of the ship. And every time we do a commissioning ceremony, the sponsor of the ship gives this one command. And for whatever reason, I really thought about it this one time as I was watching the Ford. The order she gives is man our ship and bring her to life. And as soon as she says that, the Navy band starts playing, they're ringing bells on the ship. And then the officers and crew, they run up the gangplank and they man the rails of this beautiful warship. And for the first time ever, I heard those words, man our ship and bring her to life. And really at that point, I recognized that our ships are nothing without the crew. Our crew brings the ship to life. The ship is just a hunk of steel sitting in the harbor. Maybe there's a lot of technology on board, but it's actually nothing without that crew on board. That crew brings that ship to life, and really people bring our plans to life, our companies to life, the things that we want to do in our organizations, our people bring it to life. So that's some of the core principles I teach in my books and when I'm talking to students, is that we really need to involve our people if we want to especially get our businesses, our military, our operations to be running at top performance. Our crews bring our ship to life. I mean, the Navy needs to recognize that all that technology is nothing without a good commanding officer, a good senior enlisted master chief, and that whole crew that's on board. You need those people to be able to operate that ship and efficiently. They need to be good people.